everyone, and welcome to Coffee Connections. My name is Seth Weiner, and I am your auctioneer, and you're tuned in to Coffee Connections Insights from Innovators here in the Atlanta area in our nonprofit world. And this is episode 50. Yeah, I can't believe it. We're nearing a year that I started doing this, and maybe I'll come up with a compilation or something to share with everyone. But you can always go to coffeeconnections.live to view or listen to any and all of the episodes. We've covered a lot of grounds. I mean, everything from schools to diseases to religious organizations and everything in between. So super excited with what content we've gained and really all the insights. Everyone's got such a wonderful story. So definitely go back and listen to a couple. If you're a nonprofit, you're always going to listen. You're going to get a nugget out of every single episode because everyone has a different thing to share. And again, of course, everyone's stories are, it's not just the missions that they do, but what brought them to do those missions that really I find to be interesting. And today's no different than that. So let me actually jump into today's program for you all. Today on Coffee Connections, we've got Matthew Pieper from Open Hand Atlanta. Now, Matt is the Executive Director for Open Hand Atlanta, which is a community-driven nonprofit organization that provides nutritious and medically appropriate meals, nutrition, education, and counseling to those challenged by chronic disease or disability. They provide services in over 40 Georgia counties, and Matt serves as co-chair of the Board of Advisors for the Food is Medicine Coalition, FIMC, and is the president of Meals on Wheels Association of Georgia, which, by the way, my father gets Meals on Wheels in Florida, so very much appreciate that program. He's very, very involved in a lot of different community stuff here in our area. And one of those things, he actually serves on the board of directors for the Rotary Club of Buckhead. In 2016 and 2017, he was listed in the Atlanta Business Chronicle as one of the top 50 influential nonprofit leaders in Atlanta. So please join me in welcoming Matt to our program. Let's go ahead and bring you in there. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Seth. What's going on? Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. Thanks so much for taking your time and joining us today. I got to ask you, though. We're food, but are you a coffee drinker?
Right here, man. Right here.
Oh, what you got? Let's take a look at this mug.
So this is the mug from the Food is Medicine Coalition that you mentioned. These are agencies that across the country that look very much like Open Hand. In fact, we all were founded about the same time. We all were originally founded to provide meals to men and women who were dying of AIDS.
Wow.
And so it's a rich legacy. Each of us, of our organizations, has expanded our mission to provide access to other communities. And we all aspire to the same nutritional standards, to the same level of service. And we all follow that philosophy that food truly is medicine, right? And so, so proud of this coalition and all my colleagues across the country, and love to enjoy my coffee in this mug every day.
Now, before we talk about everything else, let's talk about coffee. Let's get down to the bean here. How do you drink your coffee? Are you a drip? Are you a press? Are you I give you $5 and put it in my cup for me? What are you?
So I'm a cheap coffee person. It's just the good old off the store shelf. No gourmet for me. I just put it, whatever's on sale. If it's got caffeine, I'm good with it. So.
Okay, all right.
A little cream, a little sugar, we're good.
Oh, so cream, not like soy or almond. You're like, just give me the real deal.
I'll do almond, but I will say I only drink 2 cups a day, so I do limit it. But I grew up on cream, and so it's one of my guilty pleasures.
Yeah, and any favorite coffee shops here in Atlanta?
Well, we love Common Grounds for all the work that they do for the social impact space, and can't say enough great things about them. Starbucks has been our champion here at Open Hand Atlanta, so I got to give a plug for them. So those are 2 that come to mind.
All right. Well, I'm going to hand the mic over to you and the video to you so you can go ahead and tell everyone about Open Hand.
Oh, I love it. So I love to talk about Open Hand, as you can imagine. Proud history, proud legacy. We've been around for 33 years now. That's 33 years of community service. We come from really humble grassroots and noble legacy and founding. We were founded by a man named Michael Edwards, who continues to be a great supporter and a good friend. And he was really despondent back in the height and the darkest days of the AIDS pandemic, right? So the other pandemic. And there were no treatments at the time. And he had many friends, as his friends had many friends who were dying. And oftentimes these individuals were ostracized and isolated. And Michael said, this can't be. We've got to do better as a community. And a group of his friends got together and began preparing meals, first out of his home kitchen. And then as word got out, it was clear that the home kitchen wasn't going to cut it. He found space in a church kitchen, St. Bartholomew's on La Vista Road. They, as part of their AIDS ministry, provided the space, and a nutrition agency was born. It was called Project Open Hand back then. And for, 15 clients turned into 100 clients, turned into 200, turned into 1,000 clients who were dying of HIV and AIDS. And the group that Michael founded, all these volunteers, eventually turned into thousands of volunteers who heard the call for service. And from those noble foundings, and from that wonderful gesture, a nutrition agency was born. And we've, quadrupled in size and impact, and we've expanded our mission. In fact, about 25 years ago, leaders from the Atlanta Regional Commission, the planning agency here in Metro Atlanta, came to my predecessor and said, we love your model. You've got all these volunteers. By this point, we had built a commercial kitchen. We have a fleet of refrigerated vehicles. Would you consider expanding your mission to begin serving all of the seniors in our community who need healthier options and who are under siege by diabetes, right? So diabetes was really coming on the landscape in terms of the epidemic proportions, that we were seeing across our country. And so my predecessor, Stephen Woods, being a very visionary man, said, yeah, we'll take on this challenge. That's what Open Hand's all about. But we won't do it in the traditional community-based way of meal delivery. We're going to really focus on the quality of meals and the nutritional standards of meals. What we were feeding people in a community-based setting oftentimes is contributing to their health challenges rather than helping. So we said, yes, we'll take on this challenge, but we're going to do it in a way where we look at the quality of the meals and the nutritional standards. So no more processed food. And let's limit, if in fact, eliminate canned foods. There's too much sodium. Let's figure out how we can make our spaghetti sauce with real tomatoes and then season it with herbs so it tastes delicious, but doesn't have the sodium that is causing all of us health challenges, right? So super healthy meals that now exceed or meet or exceed nutritional standards set by the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, the USDA, just to name a few. But it wasn't just the meals that we revamped and the menus. We also said, let's help people understand the connection between really good food, really healthy food, and positive health outcomes. And from that noble beginning of the food is medicine philosophy, it really has transformed what Open Hand Atlanta has become today. We get that the services that we provide are more expensive than what you typically find in a community-based setting. But we also know that in the long run, we save our community a lot of money, because if we're feeding people the right kinds of food, we can help people, seniors in particular, live longer in their homes, which in most cases where they want to live. We can help reduce hospital stays, and we can certainly help reduce hospital readmissions, which end up costing taxpayers thousands and thousands of dollars. The main reason for doing this is because it's the right thing to do. We can help people who need a hand up and who are struggling with chronic health conditions. We can help them either overcome that chronic health condition or at least better manage it with the right kind of food and the right kind of education. And that philosophy, that food is medicine philosophy, has helped Open Hand grow to be the largest provider of home delivered meals and nutrition education in the Southeast, and one of the largest in the country. We are so proud every day in our Midtown kitchen to cook and package up and deliver about 5,000 meals a day. And we're serving all of Metro Atlanta and even beyond Metro Atlanta. And more, we're doing a lot of work in the rural areas where access to healthy foods is especially challenging. So in a nutshell, we're about really good food. We're about teaching people the connection between good food and good health. And we're about helping people live a better quality of life.
That's wonderful. You know, you're talking about that at the end here. You were talking about folks that don't have access to food, or nutritional food, right? Nutritious food. That's a real deal. Like they call it the food desert, right? Can you explain that a little bit to folks?
Yeah. You know, as wealthy and as well-resourced as Metro Atlanta is, we have pockets of communities all throughout Metro Atlanta that are considered food deserts. These are areas where grocery stores don't exist, and where access to healthy food, or food in general, other than fast food or perhaps the corner market where burritos can be had and hot dogs, the level of access to food is very low. And then these are oftentimes very poor communities who can't afford food and who can't travel. I mean, they might not own a car, and their public transportation may not take them as far to where there are grocery stores 3 counties over. And if they could get to that grocery store, then they have to carry the groceries back to their homes. And what often happens is that they go without. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. And we often say in this community, and my friends at the Atlanta Regional Commission are particularly champions of this message, which is, in Atlanta, your zip code will define the length of life. You can have someone who lives in the Buckhead area who will live 10 to 15 years longer than someone who lives in the Grove Park area, which is less than 15 minutes away, a different zip code. The lifespan is less. And if you wonder why, you need not look any further than the food supply and access to healthcare facilities. So food deserts are real, as you say, Seth.
Yeah, no, it is. And then you talk about if you start thinking about, like, well, why are there so much diabetes? Like, and it's like, well, because people aren't eating healthy. They don't have, and it's, well, we have to educate them. Well, that's part of it. But you can educate them, but if they don't have the tools, the actual food to eat, if you don't have fresh vegetables, then you can't make fresh vegetables, and you're not going to.
So well said. So well said. Back in the 50s, our country and all of us demanded fast food. We wanted it quick. We wanted it easy. We wanted to veer away from cooking, and that, processed foods became introduced into our diets. And today, it's sad that not many people actually cook at home anymore as a regular staple, right? And so,
well, hopefully during COVID, they have people. I hope there was a shift. I mean, I know there's a shift for the amount of cooking I did. And I'm not alone, so I imagine there's got to have been a shift.
Well said. But your point is well taken, though, about the education piece, because not just diabetes, but say someone is diagnosed with cancer, and all of a sudden your doctor or the case manager or the nurse practitioner says, guess what? You've got to completely change your diet. That's incredibly intimidating. And frankly, most people fail. It's so hard to switch your eating habits and your lifestyle habits, and especially the older you get, even if you're threatened with a life-threatening illness, right? But that's where nutrition education and the support that our registered dietitians, what they bring to the table, because we're not going to let you fail. We're going to, stand by you through the trajectory of your illness, and we're going to coach you on how to eat better. And if you fall off the wagon, we're going to get you back up on the wagon, right? And we're going to work on establishing goals for you that are realistic. If your doctor says you need to take 50 pounds off, well, let's start with 10. And then once we help you take 10 pounds off, let's celebrate that. Or maybe your goal is you want to attend your granddaughter's wedding in 6 months. Well, that is a really legitimate goal and something very inspiring. So our registered dietitians write that down, and then we teach to that. How are you doing, Mrs. Jones? You know, how are we coming along on your journey? And have you thought about this? And we actually use our meals here at Open Hand as teaching tools, right? So we have nutrition nuggets that actually appear on the packaging. And then our registered dietitians will teach to that meal. They'll talk to, hey, Seth, the meal that you just delivered, it's a heart healthy meal. Do you know what makes it heart healthy? Do you know why these ingredients are more important than, say, the macaroni and cheese that you used to eat? So helping people make that connection, but also providing them with that support so they don't feel alone and they don't feel so intimidated, right?
Yeah, and let's be frank that you're also breaking habits. You're helping teach new habits really with eating. That's a big thing.
Yeah, we'll go to the extent of actually teaching people how to cook. So one of the wonderful things we have here at Open Hand is a 6-week cooking class called Cooking Matters, actually. And it's targeted to folks from low socioeconomic areas, but anybody can learn from these classes. We teach people.
Do you take 85-year-old men? Because my dad could use a little lesson.
We love working with 85-year-old men, right? In fact, we'll oftentimes work with grandparents and their grandchildren together. So it becomes a family affair, right? Yeah.
And that's all in your Midtown location?
We actually, one of the beauty of our mission is we're very mobile, and we will go teach wherever the need is. So we'll go out into the community. We'll go out into those food deserts where transportation is a barrier. And we will teach these classes in community centers. We teach them at women, infant, and children clinics. We teach them at safety net clinics all throughout Metro Atlanta and nowadays in rural Georgia. So, and it's not just the preparation of food. It's actually practical information about how to read a nutrition label. If something says it's low fat or low sodium, is that right? How do you know?
And low compared to what it used to be, but it's still 400, whatever.
Right. We'll teach people, we'll take them on virtual shopping, grocery store tours and teach them which aisles to shop on, right? So very practical information, enjoyable. They form bonds, the class participants. As funding allows, we'll actually have a graduation ceremony and provide them with groceries at the end of the class as a reward for having graduated, and they'll be able to practice what they've learned in class.
So I imagine like the program is like, if I'm seeing this like like school levels, like kindergarten, first grade, each one, but it starts in the center of the grocery store, and you work your way all the way to the the way to the outer sections.
Don't even start in the center. Just avoid the center altogether, right?
Now, you said that this is one of the largest, if not largest, meal programs in the state. I mean, and you're also involved with Meals on Wheels. Is it tied together in any way, or is it totally separate?
Yeah. So I love our colleagues in the Meals on Wheels environment, right? Because they're doing great work out there. And in many ways, we share similar values in that we're trying to help senior citizens, and we're doing that through home delivered meal programs. I will say that Open Hand is different. Not everybody is able to provide the level of nutrition that we do or the nutrition education that we do. But whatever we're learning at Open Hand, I want to impart that knowledge to my colleagues in the Meals on Wheels sector. And I want to, that's the not-for-profit way. We're not trying to generate a profit here. So I don't view these individuals as anything but individuals who are trying their best on very limited dollars. And whatever information that we can impart. And there's so many great ways that we can collaborate together and do collaborate together. We often spend time down at the state capitol, together, talking about the importance of investing in home delivered meal programs, such as Open Hand or others that are in the state of Georgia. Or some of these Meals on Wheels programs don't produce their own meals. And so some of them contract with Open Hand Atlanta, and we're their meal provider. And we can then make sure that their clients are getting the healthiest meals possible. We just recently became the meals provider for Madison County Senior Services, which is, that's about a 2-hour drive outside of Metro Atlanta. But now those seniors in that community will have access to truly healthy meals, just like the seniors in Oglethorpe County, which is beyond Athens, Georgia. Same scenario. I hope their leadership will not mind me sharing this. The previous provider of meals for those two organizations didn't go over so well, and the seniors got together petitions to demand better food, and that's where Open Hand Atlanta came in, and we're proud to step up. That really just makes me, this is going to be a pun, hungry to do more. We want to serve more people and graduate them to our level of nutrition and understanding and deliciousness, because if the food doesn't taste good, it doesn't matter how healthy it is, people aren't going to eat it. And that's
right. And that's a fear, though, that a lot of folks have, that healthy isn't good. Oh, it doesn't healthy. It doesn't taste good. Now, put something green in front of, again, I'm going to use my dad as an example. 85-year-old man, recently lost his wife and is on his own. And so programs like yours, now he's in Florida, but programs like yours are vital to him. And, he gets stuff and he's like, if it's green, he doesn't want to look at it. And I'm like, you got to eat your vegetables, man. Like, you want to live, and with the amount of sodium that these frozen meals come in, it's great that he's got food, but I'm like, some of this stuff, I'm like, this isn't healthy. It's serving a purpose of getting him food, but it's not, if it's not healthy, it's got too much sodium, then that's going to hurt him.
It will, and it is a taste adjustment often, right? But I will say that we hire some amazingly talented cooks and chefs, and they are very, very proud of their creativity.
Talk a little bit about that. Where are these chefs, like folks that own restaurants in our community, or are they just chefs that are loaning their services?
No, these are chefs that we hire and have been with us for a long time. Oftentimes they might come from the restaurant community, and we've got wonderful relationships with the restaurant community here in Atlanta, but they also might be graduating from cooking schools. And in fact, they may have interned in our kitchen, and that we're the ones who helped teach them and show them the way, right? Especially proud when we can employ the underemployed, when we can teach people a really valuable skill and culinary skills where you can make a really good living, because chefs and cooks, especially good ones, are really in demand these days. But our chefs and our cooks, they're the backbone of what we do, because nothing comes out of our kitchen until they've signed off on it and it meets the standards that we have aspired to. Fresh food, that's not processed and that's made from scratch, that gives us a leg up already. But we have debunked this stereotype that healthy food can't taste good. It can be an adjustment in all reality, but that's also where the education becomes so important. If you want to feel better, Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones, this is what's going to get you there. And I love to share this story from one of our clients, who we actually invited to come speak to our staff because she was so inspirational. She was 65 years old, grossly overweight, had a heart condition, and was really struggling with depression. She wasn't spending time with her grandchildren. She had to be in a wheelchair most of the time. She had uncontrollable diabetes. She says she graduated to the Open Hand program, and she began accessing our meals, working with our registered dietitians. She was on our program for about a year. She took off an incredible number of pounds. We were able to get her diabetes into a controlled state. She no longer had to be in a wheelchair. She could walk with a cane. And the thing that I wasn't prepared for, not necessarily something that we measure in terms of outcomes, but she said she realized that she began to think more clearly. She said the healthier food, her brain synapses was being impacted. She'd always been an avid reader as a young woman, and so now she went back to reading books, and it caused her and inspired her to go back to audit college classes.
Oh, wow.
So she came and talked to my class, and she had this loose jacket on, and she stood in front of my staff, and she said, she took off her jacket, threw it up in the air in sort of this Oprah Winfrey moment, right? And said, "Look at me, I'm fabulous, and you guys helped us get there," right? And we don't have that kind of success with everybody, but man, when we do, it just feels so great. she's empowered.
And if someone like her, before she transitioned, is looking for help, I imagine they go to openhandatlanta.org.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a whole client services team that will help enroll people into our program, try and figure out what funding streams they might be eligible for to help supplement the cost of their meals.
So that's good to know. That was one of my questions. It's expensive, but is there funding to help people?
There are federal funding streams out there. For folks who have HIV, there's the Ryan White program, which is an act of Congress. For senior citizens, many of our seniors that we serve are served through funds from the Older Americans Act. Again, an act of Congress. For in the state of Georgia, we're a Medicaid waiver state. For folks who have Medicaid waivers, those waivers can be used towards the purchase of home delivered meals. And we're grateful for those funds. But the reality is, those funds don't cover the true cost of the level of service that we provide.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at this. What you've mentioned, that you've got the educators, you've got chefs, you've got delivery people, and not just in Metro Atlanta, but 2 hours away. You've got client services and, onboarding team. I mean, that's a lot of people to feed, let alone everyone else they're feeding.
It's a big operation. Right? But, the math equation serves us well. Yeah, if we'll spend a little bit more money on the front end, right, to truly provide people with the meals that are going to empower them to be used as tools to help them overcome health outcomes or health challenges or better manage them. We keep people out of hospitals. We lower hospital readmission rates. We keep them in their homes. We give them a better quality of life. You can feed someone for 6 months for the average cost of 1 day stay at a hospital. So, when you think about that, you realize that a medically appropriate meal intervention, which is really what we offer here, is a low cost investment. It truly is a low cost investment. It's a smart investment.
Right. And that goes back to, like you're saying, education. And, it's interesting how, yes, there's nutrition classes in school, but to have like a nutrition coach to actually analyze what you're doing and to really get you to, as students, to think about these sort of things. These are life tools that probably would make a huge difference. Like, you look down the line, if we can educate the kids coming out of high school now and get them in good habits, then 40, 50, 60 years later, that's less hospitalization. It's things like that,
Start people young. Sadly, there's not a lot of nutrition taught in elementary and high schools.
No.
I will say that Open Hand, for our Cooking Matters classes, are beginning to do more and more cooking classes actually in school systems.
So that's cool, because home ec is pretty much gone now, right? I was one of the last people that had a typewriter class. I will tell you, not to age myself too much, but yes, I did. There was a typewriter class when I was in middle school or so.
You went from your typewriter class to your wood shop class, right?
Yeah, and then I got to share this, because this is hilarious. I found this the other day. When I was in high school, I started a company, and this was my business card. I found my business card. Notice on the bottom right it says Pieper.
That is great.
Oh man. Anyway, sorry to digress there, but so a lot of people to feed. We're talking about education. Before I move on, I want to say one thing that you said that's just been like hanging in my head. 100 years ago, or let's even 70 years ago, fast food was not what it is today. And today, it's what feeds the majority of our country. I have a belief that we can change that, because if it could change in the last 70 years, it could change in the next 70 years. And it might not be in our lifetime, and it's probably not going to be, but we can... like these just because the buildings are here doesn't mean they're going to be here forever. We don't know what the landscape's going to look like in 100 years. And I think that's something that we get so used to being in our bubble, in our world. How this is how it is, but it doesn't mean it has to be that way, and that it's always going to be that way.
So well said. I will say that, we still have a long way to go as a society, but healthy food is becoming more of the national dialogue. Like, it's, 10 years ago, I probably couldn't have gotten a a meeting with a hospital CEO or a medical director, and now they seek, open hand out to see how we might help their patients. So the needle is slowly changing. But you're spot on. I'm also a believer in moderation, right? Like we all going to have our cheat days, and that's okay. But in general, we need to be cooking at home more often, right? And using fresh, healthy ingredients. Or if you don't cook, and I don't, you can get on our Good Measure meal plan at Open Hand, because we cook and package up healthy meals that are delicious and sell them online. So it's an e-commerce product to the paying public, and 100% of the net proceeds go back to support our community nutrition program. So we're being innovative. And it's called Good Measure Meals. There's a friend of mine
what's it called? I'm sorry?
Good Measure Meals.
Good Measure Meals. I have to check this out because I was talking to a friend of mine who's in his mid 50s. We'll call it mid 50s. He's single and lives on his own and is just completely a mess. Just like, to him, cooking a meal is making an omelet.
Right.
With bacon and all this other stuff in it, which, fine. But like, it's all it's not even all fast food. It's all just fried food and stuff. I'm like, man, you live in an apartment complex. Go use a treadmill across, in the gym for a half hour a day and get on a meal program like the one you're talking about. So at least you're eating healthy. You don't have to think about it. If you're not going to cook, then eat healthy.
Amen. So, you know what? Amen. He's not alone. He's not alone. There's, here's the sad truth. If Americans would eat better, stop smoking, and exercise just a little bit more, our life expectancy would be so much greater in our quality of life. We spend more as a country on healthcare than just about any other country on the globe, and yet we have some of the worst health outcomes of any country. As rich and as resourced as we are in this country, we have some of the worst health outcomes of any country on the globe. And, we need not look further than our food supply.
Yeah, it's the same thing with mental health. Anything when it comes down to it, we are our worst enemy. For whatever reason that is. I'm in my 40s and my group of friends, we talk all, I've got my friends that I've been friends with for years, and in our 40s, we started getting healthy. It's, actually running and just doing all these, eating healthy and doing yoga and like all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? My belly's not going anywhere. It's just not. But we share this ideology that, like, you know what though, it's not like what we're doing now is going to save us down the road, and give us. I don't want to be walking with oxygen and in my 70s, and so
and if you've got kids, your kids don't want to you have a responsibility if you're a parent to model good behavior, but also to be around for your children.
Well, you were talking about education. I was thinking about that also with my son and others. It's so important that listen, when I was a kid in middle school, I would come home from school, I'd make 2 grilled cheeses and drink 2 Coca-Colas. Now, that was okay. Like, that was normal.
Right.
That's not normal in my household now. Like, that's not happening with my son. And, we teach good habits, and I'm fortunate my kid likes to eat healthy. Like, he'll choose the healthy option on the menu. Like, would you like that burger with fries? He's like, oh, do you have any vegetables? And it's like, whoa. So that's a win, but not all kids are that way, and I get that. One other quick question though is locally sourced vegetables and food. Are you locally sourcing your stuff, or is it where are you getting majority of your
So sometimes food, we're able to locally source. So as an example, for those Cooking Matters classes that I talked about, we can source locally sourced fruits and vegetables. And I'll give a shout out to a wonderful not-for-profit provider called the Common Market here in town. They broker relationships between agencies like Open Hand and farmers, so we can actually support local growers, and they're called Common Market. But the reality is in the volume of food that we're providing, we have to go to the big companies, the U.S. Foods of the world and the Cisco, because the local providers can't meet the volume and the seasonal requirements that we have, right? And so we're working on it. I have to think about the balance between our sustainability,
Right.
because also those locally sourced foods typically are a little bit more expensive, right? And so I've got to I've got to weigh that with, um, I've got to keep the doors open and the lights on,
Uh-huh.
and people employed in order to do all of this great work. And so, but we have a real desire to use more locally sourced vendors. I will say we also do here a grocery bag program at Open Hand, which we call Market Basket. So, and it includes a lot of healthy ingredients, including a lot of fruits and vegetables, for people who want to cook for themselves and are healthy enough to cook for themselves and would prefer that rather than one of our prepared meals. And so, for those market baskets, we're able to source those foods from local vendors.
That's
Um,
great.
and hopefully,
Now,
we'll do more of that moving forward.
now you talked a little bit about the costs, and we talked about all the staff. I got to ask you, where's the magic tree that's got money growing off of it? How do you pay for all this? Where's this money? Grants, individual donation? Can you talk a little bit about where the funding comes?
Yeah, well, it definitely takes more than one money tree, right? And so,
Of course, sorry.
I think every not-for-profit strives to have a diverse revenue base, right? Because you don't want to be completely reliant on philanthropy, although philanthropy is very important, and we do indeed rely on it. But if you're so reliant on philanthropy, philanthropy can have a good year and can have a bad year, and you're likely not to sustain for the long run. And so at Open Hand, we have our social enterprise, which I just mentioned, goodmeasuremeals.com. You can order healthy meal plans online, delivered right to your front door. And you can feel good to know that 100% of the net proceeds go back to help fuel the engine that feeds Open Hands, financial, our bottom line, right? But the other aspect beyond philanthropy and beyond our social enterprise are these contracts that I'm talking about. So our clients do have funding streams attached to them: the Medicaid waivers, the Ryan White funding, the Older Americans Act funding. But again, those funds don't completely cover the cost of what we provide. So we raise dollars philanthropically. And that's a very important part of our business model, right? It's not only the donations that we count on from our base of donors. And we're so grateful to live in Atlanta, Georgia, which is one of the most generous cities philanthropy-wise in the country.
Yeah.
But we also benefit from volunteers who come into our kitchen and come into our packing area, and they give of themselves free. That's free labor, and that keeps our labor costs down while also providing them with an opportunity to feel good about giving back and giving of themselves and having a really fun time doing it, by the way. I mean, you come into our packing room and you're helping to pack meals on an assembly line, and you're wearing this goofy hairnet, right? And
Laverne and Shirley style.
gloves.
I love it.
Yeah. It's like the Lucy and Ethel episode when you're on that assembly line,
the bomb
right?
bombs.
So, and it's a blast. I mean, we've had people who come to meet other people to date, and we're proud of that. Like, we don't talk about how we are a dating service, but we've had people meet on the packing line and then later on get engaged and married, right? So
where do I sign up to volunteer? Oh,
yeah,
openhandatlanta.org. Okay.
Great way to meet people. And it's also just a great way a lot of companies like to come in with their teams because
I was going to ask that.
development.
That's great. Okay. So yeah, that's fantastic. I love hearing that. And then is it 21 and up, or can people bring families and whatnot?
If there are parents accompany,
yeah.
I believe now we are allowing people 16 years of age and up if they are accompanied by a parent, right? If they're driving, if they are delivering meals, again, they have to be accompanied by a legal guardian. So,
gotcha.
But we love it when families come together, and a lot of parents will bring their kids to volunteer and go deliver a meal because it helps them to see another side of life, right? I mean, a lot of the neighborhoods that we provide meals to the residents there look very much different than the neighborhood I grew up in, Dunwoody, Georgia, right?
Well, let me throw something here, because I wouldn't be your Rocktioneer if I didn't share an insight. I could tell you that, folks, if you are a school and you're trying to raise money, there's a way to do it. Not just your gala. Yes, you do your gala. Yes, you do your auction, but do week-long activations. Have each class, okay? Each class goes ahead and has a teacher or team, a parent that's the leader of that class, and you run a contest for who can do the most, whatever it is, exercise one day, different days. But one of those days is a community outreach day, and contact Open Hand Atlanta and be a volunteer. See how many meals you can pack in that day. How many deliveries can you do in that day? How many parents can deliver with their kids and something like that? There's a lot of ways to be creative about it, but
love it.
Yeah, a lot of ways
Absolutely
to do
love
it.
it.
Well, I know we were over time, but this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you. I know that you've got an event coming up. Can you talk a little bit about Party in the Kitchen?
Oh, I love to talk about Party in the Kitchen. It is a party, and it's coming up on September 30th. This is a kick-ass party. It includes wonderful chefs from wonderful restaurants all throughout Metro Atlanta who are bringing their incredible cuisine for people to sample. The libations will be flowing. There's great dance music. There's a wonderful auction. It is chaired by this incredible group of community leaders, including Helen Carlos and Carmen Teitelman, who both are board members at Open Hand and very engaged. And these women are warriors. They're planning the best party. And then their co-chairs are these incredible celebrity chefs. It's hard to live in Atlanta and you not have heard of Chef Kevin Rathbun and Chef Jerry Gonzalez.
Never heard of him.
Right? Who are they? I delivered meals with Chef Rathbun the other day, and I'm not short. I'm about 5'11" and a half, which I rounded up to 6 feet, of course, right? The male ego, but he towers over me by a foot wide. Foot tall and a foot wide.
Yeah,
just a giant of guys, and his heart, is as big as his stature. So we love those guys. It's going to be a great party, and we could use those funds more than ever. I will say, the supply chain issues that the country is facing are causing a lot of inflation. We're now paying double the price for chicken than we were 3 months ago.
So that's interesting because there was a whole. Remember last year, right around this time, there was or maybe right before. Anyway, after March, COVID hit. There was like a whole meat shortage. Everyone thought, and then they rushed to the stores to get all the meat. But I didn't see it, and I actually don't eat meat as much as I used to. But I don't remember seeing the difference, and I haven't really been buying meat, so I don't see the difference at all now. But you're saying it's significantly up. Is that in the all across, huh?
There's just so many. It really boils down to supply chain issues. People are having a hard time distributing food and sourcing food. And
why are they having a hard time distributing?
Well, so there's so many products that are shipped from other distribution places, like around the country, outside of the country. Well, there's not enough containers. The pandemic put this incredible pressure on distribution, right? And so as people shut down and needed to have things delivered to their homes, just as one example, people have been out of work. So food has been in shorter supply. So those food prices are going up. There are chemicals. Here's an example. The meal trays that our food is delivered in are made with a chemical that is sourced in China. Well, the food manufacturers are also of those trays are located in China. They can't get access to that chemical, and yet they've had a huge demand for these trays as more and more companies are having to deliver their food from restaurants to home. And so now to try and purchase a food tray is twice the cost that it used to be. Those are costs that we're having to absorb in our operations, and it hurts. And so
that's interesting. When you think about the packaging, we just think about what's in it. We don't think about all that. That makes a lot of sense. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. All the more reason why Party in the Kitchen is as important as ever this year. We rely a lot on those funds to keep us going and to keep this mission going. And so anybody interested in attending can go to partyinthekitchen.org. There's different levels of ticket prices, and we'd love to see you there. It's going to be a great party.
And I'm just going to take a wild guess. Maybe a sponsor is interested. They can go there as well.
Oh, twist our arm. Yeah, we would we would love to have a sponsor. And we roll out the red carpet for the sponsors, and we've got all kind of little added benefits for those who step up to that level, and we'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, well, Matt, this has been awesome. I really enjoyed chatting with you. I feel like we could chat even longer, but before I let you go, just like with every episode, is there a nonprofit organization in Atlanta that you'd like to recommend to be a future guest on Coffee Connections?
Yeah, oh, I'd love to. I mean, there's so many I could select from because I'm blessed to have an incredible support group of not-for-profit CEOs. We're a knit group in this community. But I am going to give a shout out to my really great friend Dorothy Davis, who's the CEO of Visiting Nurse Health Services.
Oh, okay.
She's one of the most visionary and courageous leaders in our community, and Visiting Nurse Health Services is doing so much incredible work. She gives a great interview. I think she'd be a fun discussion. So.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the introduction. Thank you so much for sharing and doing all that you do. Oh, one last question. How long have you been with the organization? I meant to ask you in the beginning.
12 years. I started when I was 5.
Okay. Awesome. Well, the organization's lucky to have you, leading charge there. And thank you again for your time, folks. Please go to openhandatlanta.org, learn more about the organization. We will see you here actually next week on Thursday, on the 29th with, Camp Twin Lakes. Camp Twin Lakes. You're listening to Coffee Connections. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks.